In Conversation with Terry Shepard, award-winning broadcaster, narrator, and author. A deep dive into the writer's craft with the artists and support systems who create the stories we love.
Our special guest this week is Thomas Cullen, a federal trial judge and former U.S. attorney whose sharp insights and eloquent prose have made waves in the opinion pages of the newspapers and magazines across the country. But this summer, Thomas is stepping into the literary world with the release of his debut novel, Charlie Man, a stirring coming-of-age story set in Richmond, Virginia. Set against the backdrop of the late summer of 1994, Charlie Man follows Charlie Stewart through his final year at an elite all-boys school, where teenage heartbreak, academic pressure, and the complexities of friendship all collide. Judge Thomas Cullen, welcome to the conversation.
Thanks for having me, Terry.
Why 1994?
It's a great question. It was a good year, one that I remember fondly, and some of my most formative experiences occurred circa 1994, 1995, 1996. So it was an important time in my life and one that I was able to draw upon as I thought about writing a book.
Without giving away too many spoilers, dive a little bit deeper into the synopsis of the story for us.
Sure. So the story begins in late August, prior to the Labor Day weekend. Charlie Stewart, the protagonist, is entering his senior year at St. Mark's Episcopal School. Charlie is a relatively undistinguished, mediocre student, although he's an able writer and an avid reader. He's a mediocre athlete and someone who, as of late, has experienced some anxiety and depression related to the tragic passing of his father from cancer. But he's optimistic as he enters his senior year. He hopes to rekindle his relationship with his former girlfriend, Katie Hendricks, and play football, run track, and gain admission to a prestigious state university.
Most of us who write these books draw from our own life experience. Did you do some of that in Charlie Man?
So I've read, I think it's often said that most first novels are at least partially autobiographical. I think that's true to a certain extent. Some of what Charlie experienced is vaguely familiar to the author. Some of the teachers and coaches that he encounters along the way are familiar figures, although there are no dead ringers. I think most of the characters are composites of folks that I encountered during those years. And some of the friendships and experiences are familiar, although it is truly a work of fiction.
Class, adolescence, loyalty, and masculinity are all building blocks for Charlie Man. How did you decide to focus on those themes?
So those were significant aspects, I think, of my upbringing. I attended it was a co-ed, but it was a private school in Richmond, Virginia at that time. And Richmond is a unique place, I think, like a lot of southern cities. In terms of masculinity and competition and all of the more fraught experiences that young men had during that time were certainly a big part of my life, and they left an indelible impact on my life for good and for bad. So I think it was important to share some of what that experience is, particularly at that time period in a particular place surrounded by certain types of people.
Thomas Cullen is our guest. Charlie Man is his debut novel. Why did you write it?
That's a great question. So I sometimes tell people I'm a lawyer now, judge, but my first love is writing. I started writing when I was in college. I used to write op-eds for a student newspaper. And then even while I was practicing law, I would occasionally write essays and op-eds on various topics, usually public policy, law enforcement, occasionally political topics. When I became a judge, I could no longer opine on current events and politics and those sorts of things. So I needed an outlet. And the first few years I was a judge, I had an opportunity to write some essays for Cardinal News, which is Virginia's largest nonprofit news site, on the joys of fly fishing in January in the snow and attending an all-boys summer camp. And after writing one of those, I decided, you know what, I'm going to try this and let's see if I can get a first chapter on paper and we'll see where we are.
When you were Charlie's age, did you know what you wanted to be when you grew up?
Yeah, that's another good question. I had a father who was a successful lawyer and was a role model and a significant influence in my life. And I thought perhaps I would follow in his footsteps. But I was a relatively undistinguished student and lacked some ambition and direction at that age. So I'd be lying if I said I knew I was going to be on the path I ended up on.
What's the audience for the book?
So it's categorized as young adult fiction. The publisher makes that determination. I think that was a significant factor in finding a publisher and in getting the book published. But folks who have read the book, including Martin Clark, who is, you may know, a best-selling legal thriller writer, who's also a former judge who happened to live in Virginia and has been a huge help to me. He's remarked he'd never read a young adult novel and thinks the book will be appealing not only potentially to young adults, but folks who came of age during that time period who remember well, and I think fondly, what it was like in the age of landline telephones and CDs and mixtapes and writing letters and the like.
It does have a little bit of an American Graffiti for the 90s feel, doesn't it?
It does. And I haven't read a whole lot from that era. That was one of the most enjoyable parts about writing the book, was reliving the mid-1990s.
The book is Charlie Man, and our special guest is Thomas Cullen. Charlie's pursuit of a relationship with Katie Hendricks adds emotional weight to this story. What role does Katie play in his growth?
Katie is someone that Charlie has had a crush on for a long period of time. He finally has the opportunity to formally date her during his junior year, and she breaks it off before the upcoming summer break. Charlie is, I think, devastated, is probably not overstating it, disappointed, but has the opportunity at the beginning of the book in his senior year to get back with Katie and spend time with her, and they end up rekindling their relationship. It has its ups and downs, but Katie is someone who Charlie respects deeply. She's every bit the student he's not. She's a top athlete who wants to play college tennis. She has a lot going for her when Charlie doesn't necessarily have a lot going for him. And she's just someone that I think makes him feel good about himself, gives him a sense of optimism, and buoys his spirits.
Did your background as an attorney and as a judge play any role in your approach to storytelling with Charlie Man?
So I don't think directly. One thing about judges and lawyers that I think non-lawyers and non-judges may take for granted or not know is how much writing we do as part of our day-to-day existence. Most of it is incredibly dry, right, and boring. I was fortunate enough to have several mentors along the way who really impressed upon me the importance of writing prose that was accessible, right? So as a lawyer and now as a judge, when we write legal opinions, I tell my clerks, and when I'm writing one, I want this to read like a newspaper article where somebody can pick this up and understand the legal issues involved, what happened, what is the story, because every case is boring to a certain extent, but you can find and develop and craft a narrative that hooks the reader. And we try to do that with legal writing, short declarative sentences. We don't use legalese, and we try to get to the point and do it succinctly. So I think some of that I was able to transfer to this totally different type of writing project, and hopefully it helped me along the way.
St. Mark's is almost a character in itself, prestigious, pressure-filled, and tradition-bound. How did you think about setting as a shaping force for Charlie?
Sure. So setting was probably one of the most critical aspects of the project. I wanted to capture as accurately as I could time and place. So Richmond, Virginia, mid-1990s, this unique southern city and this collection of neighborhoods that we refer to as the Near West End, that those who came up in that place during that time, it will feel very familiar. One of my favorite authors is Pat Conroy. You read his novels and you can hear it, you can see it, you can smell the brackish water. Not that I'm Pat Conroy, but I wanted to to create a place in Richmond that was that folks would relate to, that they would recall fondly, and that folks who have never set foot in the area would be able to picture and see. As part of that, I had to create this school, which is a fictional school, but it's loosely based on an all-boys school that I won't refer to by name on this podcast, that I had a lot of experience with. I had friends who attended. They were arch rivals in athletics. There was a lot of overlap in my day-to-day affairs as a teenager. And it's created a place that I knew fairly well.
Do you remember how you handled the pressure as an adolescent when you were going through that age?
So fortunately, there was all sorts of pressure, as I think is apparent in the pages of the book. But I can only imagine the pressure that 17, 18-year-old boys and girls in this day and age. Yeah, I think it's only become more intense in that respect in terms of the cutthroat competitiveness of academics, the arms race to gain admission to what we perceive as elite or prestigious colleges. So to make the grades, to get the SAT scores, to do all the extracurricular things that are now required. And on top of all that, to succeed in athletics, right, at a high level. And when you had some time to just enjoy being a young man by the river on a late summer afternoon. So it was enormously challenging. Charlie deals with a lot. Anxiety is always lurking behind the scenes until it overwhelms him at some point. There's some familiarity of that experience for the author. I remember those pressures well. And it's a wonderful time, but it's also a precarious time. And I think that's what I hope is relatable to readers, whether they grew up in Richmond, attended a private school or not. I think some of these challenges are timeless. The setting is a little bit different and unique.
Thomas Cullen is a judge by day, and he's a debut author by night. Charlie Man is his book. What's been the reaction?
So I've been really pleased. I was really reluctant at first. Once the manuscript was accepted by my publisher, I only let a few people read it. My wife was my primary editor along the way, and she gave me invaluable feedback. My now 14-year-old son read the original manuscript. My daughter, who's a little bit busier at age 17, read most of it, although she's finishing it this summer. So I got good feedback from them. But then as I had to start to circulate things as we got closer to publication to seek endorsements, I was fortunate to be connected to Martin Clark, who I didn't know, George Singleton from South Carolina, Christopher Swan, and others. And they were all wonderful in their feedback and willingness to endorse the book and assist me as I moved towards the date of publication. I finally allowed members of my extended family, so parents, I have a large family, 3 siblings, in-laws, longtime family friends, colleagues who have since read the book. And so far, so good. I think folks are a little bit shocked that the straight-laced judge has written a YA novel with some of these themes and these characters, but everyone seems to enjoy it, and they've been good sports about it.
What do you hope that people, especially young adult readers, will take away from their experience with the book?
I hope Charlie speaks to them in terms of his resilience, his stoicism, his wit, and the way he handles himself despite sometimes daunting circumstances, taking things in stride, being willing to talk and share when things aren't going well, finding role models, whether they're teachers or coaches, folks that you can confide in and trust and unburden yourself upon. So Charlie goes through a lot, like I think a lot of teenagers today. As I said earlier, I think even more than I did 30 years ago. So it's my hope that there's some inspiration and some comfort that this kid they're reading about had a tough time, but he perseveres, and readers can judge for themselves. But where is he at the end of the year compared to where he was at the beginning? And hopefully they feel like Charlie's going to make it.
How can readers learn more about Thomas Cullen and your book?
Sure. So federal judges don't do a lot of social media for many reasons. So I don't post. I don't have a website. I really don't do social media. My publisher, Brandy Lane, has an author page. My publicist has a page devoted to me. If you Google my name and Judge, you can come across some of my old op-eds, including something I wrote for the New York Times several years ago. If you're interested, it's out there. I just can't spoon feed it to you directly through an Instagram page.
The book is Charlie Man, the debut novel for Judge Thomas Cullen. And you can learn about him by Googling Thomas Cullen, Cullen, on your favorite browser. Judge Cullen, thank you for the conversation.
No, absolutely, Terry. It's been my pleasure.
In Conversation with Terry Shepard is a copyrighted presentation. All rights reserved. I'm Lisa Davis. Join Terry Shepard next time in Conversation.